Do you consider downtown a blighted area? And do you feel we still need this type of tax incentive to spur growth, or would you change how TIF is used?
Nashville has been well served with our TIF program. One can debate how blighted downtown might be right now, but the issue of what we're talking about, these excess revenue that comes in, this is a high quality problem. The fact that we're having additional revenue available coming from these taxes that are being generated is a nice issue for us to deal with. I think they've been put to good use. I would like to see the TIF program continue to move along. I think it's helped both the economic development of our city, but also it's played a role, not in my view as muscular a role as it can on issues like affordable housing, because if we, local government provides a sort of benefit, financing benefit, you do have a little leverage, and part of that leverage can be to exact certain things on behalf of the city for the goodwill of the people who live here. I think we could be a little bit more muscular on requirements for affordable housing and specifically how we define affordable housing.
I think when you could, downtown Nashville is a perfect example of seeing the effective use of TIF. Obviously, if you compared it to 1977 or when I used to come downtown in the early 80s or when I lived there in the late 90s versus today, I think we can see some of the tremendous advantages that it has brought. I think where we are now and what the question really talks about is two different things. One, are we comfortable with TIF proceeds and those property tax revenues going back to MDHA once those projects have been paid off, or should they go to the general fund? I think that was a process that was in place well before this administration. I think we're likely to see some change on that in the near future. But the second piece of that is where can we use TIF responsibly? And I think now we probably need to look outside of downtown, not just with TIF, but with our entire economic development strategy.
I absolutely believe in having incentives, and all you have to do is look across the whole county. There's more than just one blighted area called downtown. There are multiple blighted areas that the council approved for these kinds of incentives. And so if you look at the recent decision for CHS to go to Antioch, that was built a lot and based a lot upon having those incentives, number one. Number two, I would say that every city wants to be Nashville right now because of our growth. And so we have to continue to be competitive. This gives the mayor and the city an opportunity to be very, very competitive in keeping companies here like Bridgestone and adding 600 more high-paying jobs. And so I would use a criteria for every single decision on whether or not to use those incentives, a real smart business decision. But I certainly would support stepping back right now and looking at the areas that we have allocated as blighted areas and deciding with a logical approach whether or not those are the right ones or not.
So when I look at the TIF that we have done, if you go back to the previous administration, there were zero. We've done several in this. Maybe there's a balance for the next administration. But I will tell you that we've been able to bring automotive with Bridgestone. We've been able to bring healthcare with HCA Parallon. We've been able to bring banking with UBS and beef jerky manufacturing. And that's not downtown. So Oberto we were able to get from Washington, and they brought good, high-paying manufacturing jobs. So for me, it's really about asking the criteria. And then as the next mayor, making sure that you negotiate a good agreement with the companies.
So I've always thought about it, the way then Mayor Bredesen talked about it is TIF and these incentive deals are often a way to start a fire, not necessarily to keep a fire burning. And if you think about this, we've had some great deals, and I think we're all pro-incentives. I think the difference is what are we going to, or how are we going to partner with these businesses? And I think when you talk about specifically downtown, the blighted area, there are still some sections of downtown that need some development, need some city partnerships there. I would look at it a little bit differently is when we look at the Gulch, right now there's not a lot of green space there. So can we work with the developer there to be creative with green space, much like you see at Montgomery Bell Academy, where you have a soccer field on top of a parking garage. Maybe we need to be inventive and creative to partner with the developer to do that kind of investment.
Downtown does not look blighted, but the fact is that the package that was put together till 2040 for a reason. It's a bigger effort. And so it's not always about how it looks. It's whether the effort has been completed. And so I'm not really huge on tax incentives. But what I don't want to happen, since I live in North Nashville, is for this type of discussion that has been happening around Nashville to happen in the midst of a project around North Nashville, right in the middle of it when North Nashville starts looking better, where the funds might be diverted to another program, a project, because things look better. And the result is that the people that live within the community that should stay within the community are not able to stay there because of all of the progress, all of the growth, and all of the development. So we need to be careful when we start looking at projects that were started by TIF or other type of increment financing to make sure that we don't stop it in the middle of its process because it looks like it's complete, and then we end up hurting future decisions and future investments and future opportunities